PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be talking about the waiver claim history of your Vegas Golden Knights. Due to the most recent waiver claim that just happened very recently with Vegas, we decided to kind of go back and log every single waiver claim that Vegas has done. It has been 9 up to this point in their franchise history. And just to kind of make a fun video out of this, just to have some good content for everyone watching all around the world, we just decided that over the 8 seasons they have been around, we're going to tell you what happened to those 8 players that the Vegas Golden Knights claimed on waivers, and then talk about the possibility of what those 2 players are that they did make those claims for very recently. Now, before we get into this, go to www.prconnectionsradio.com, voice of new media. Check out their content there. Follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub, and follow your host, I'm right down there, at Ian J. Rachiele. So, for the Golden Knights waiver history, dating back to 2017, the first ever waiver claim, all right, the first player the Vegas Golden Knights ever acquired on waivers actually spent a decent amount of time with your Vegas Golden Knights, as on October 3rd, 2017, right before opening day, a week before they were scheduled to go out and face the Dallas Stars and take on the Arizona Coyotes in their first ever home game, the Vegas Golden Knights would go to the Boston Bruins, and they would claim their goaltender and a former top draft pick of theirs in Malcolm Subban. And for Malcolm Subban, this was an interesting situation because you got to remember that you had Marc-Andre Fleury. All right, you had guys like Oscar Dance. You had Maxim Lagacé. There were some goaltenders that were already in the system. They had drafted Yuri Patera. They had Dylan Ferguson, who they acquired from the Mark Mafat trade. But they had just lost Calvin Pickard as they sent him away after being drafted during the 2017 NHL expansion draft. So for the Vegas Golden Knights to claim Malcolm Subban on waivers at the time was interesting because he would be a backup role to a future Hall of Famer in Marc-Andre Fleury. And sure enough, that is what Malcolm Subban did. As during that 2017-2018 season, when Malcolm Subban was on the roster, that was the year the Vegas Golden Knights had their miracle run and went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And when it came to Malcolm Subban, this is a player that, you know what, he wasn't going to be, attention grabbing. All right, Malcolm Subban was not going to be somebody that you would say would catch your attention every single night. But what Malcolm Subban did was that he was consistent. All right, this is someone in Malcolm Subban that he did do a good amount of stuff for the Vegas Golden Knights. After all, he did win his first ever NHL game as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. He also ended up being, in some important games. He did play 60 games as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights as the backup to Marc-Andre Fleury. And more importantly, this is also something that happened in late 2017. Malcolm Subban played in the NHL against the Nashville Predators against his brother PK. And that was one of the first couple of times that you would have a set of brothers playing against each other. In fact, I think it was the 9th time that the Vegas Golden Knights, Malcolm Subban, and Nashville Predators PK Subban ended up being a pair of brothers who played against each other in the NHL. I mean, Malcolm Subban, during his tenure with the Vegas Golden Knights, and thank you to HockeyReference.com for this information. Now, he played 22 games in year 1, had 13 wins, 4 losses, and 2 overtime losses. He had a goals against average of 2.68 and a save percentage a little over 91%. Now, he did not play a single game in the postseason because of Marc-Andre Fleury being the starting goaltender. And then year 2, 2018-2019, similar to the year before, he only played 21 games that year. Unfortunately, his stats did go down a bit as he only had 8 wins, 10 losses, and 2 overtime losses. His goals against average went up to a 2.93, and then he had a 90.2 save percentage. And his last year with the Golden Knights organization during the shortened 2020-2021 season, this would be a season where he had 20 starts, 9 wins, 7 losses, and 3 overtime losses. However, he would have his worst goals against average with a 3.18 and a save percentage under 90%. So his tenure and his end of the Vegas Golden Knights tenure didn't go the way as planned. Now, what happened in that shortened season that was affected by COVID? Well, in February of 2020, Malcolm Subban would be dealt to the Chicago Blackhawks, as him, a prospect, and a 2020 second-round pick would be sent to Chicago. This is a reference from NHL.com, and they would get a very valuable piece in that deal, as this would be a Malcolm Subban trade where he would go and they would get Robin Lehner. So when Malcolm Subban's tenure ended with Vegas, the Robin Lehner era started immediately afterwards. So for Malcolm Subban to be the first waiver claim that your Vegas Golden Knights ever did, the fact that he did spend some quality time with the Golden Knights, this is a success right here. We're kind of going to go over what these were. Some are good, some are mid, and then some really didn't do much. But for Malcolm Subban, in terms of it as a waiver claim, he did a stellar job with the Vegas Golden Knights, spending 3 seasons, playing over 60 games with the Vegas Golden Knights. So you have to commend Malcolm Subban for his tenure with the Golden Knights, considering he was a waiver claim. So second in the waiver claim history, this would happen 2 months after the Malcolm Subban claim. And this is actually, in my opinion, the second best waiver claim the Vegas Golden Knights have had in terms of durability, in terms of time and tenure, and more importantly, in terms of his success. This guy was very successful for the Vegas Golden Knights during his tenure in Vegas. And I'm talking about on December 13th, 2017, the San Jose Sharks would put Ryan Carpenter on waivers. The next day, Vegas Golden Knights put in a claim, and he would spend 2 seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights organization, play over 100 games in Vegas, and most importantly, he would suit up for the Vegas Golden Knights during 17 playoff games. During that 2017-2018 Stanley Cup playoff run, where the Vegas Golden Knights made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, Ryan Carpenter was on that roster and, in fact, was a vital part of the bottom 6 for Vegas. So for someone like Ryan Carpenter, you can make an argument that he has actually been one of the best waiver claims the Vegas Golden Knights have had. So with Ryan Carpenter, he was a guy that was on the bottom 6. You had him, Tomas Nosek, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Brennan Lepsic, Oscar Lindbergh. Like, there was so many guys on the bottom 6 during that 2017-2018 season, and Ryan Carpenter was a part of that. And overall, when it came to Vegas and what he did during that tenure, those 2 seasons, he actually did a very good job. So in 36 games he played with the Golden Knights in season 1, he had 9 goals, which meant that he scored a goal in a quarter of the games that he played in Vegas that year, had 14 points. So 9 goals, 14 points in his first season playing in Vegas after being picked up on waivers. And then during that playoff tenure, he had 17 games played, no goals, but he had 5 assists. So very valuable when it came to Ryan Carpenter. Statistically, I like what we saw from him there. And then in 2018-2019, he would play in 68 of the 82 games out there on the bottom 6. He only had 5 goals on the year, but he picked up his point production with 18 games played. Now, during the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, and thanks to Hockey Reference for this information, he was not in the starting lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights during their Stanley Cup playoff run in 2019. So Ryan Carpenter would end his tenure in Vegas as the next season that Ryan Carpenter would be in free agency, he would sign a deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. Kind of interesting, by the way. Malcolm Subban, his tenure in Vegas ends by being traded to Chicago. Ryan Carpenter, his tenure would end as signing as a free agent in Chicago. But yeah, Ryan Carpenter, I would put him at number 2. If we were going to do like a ranking system of what the waiver claims have been, Ryan Carpenter at number 2. He did a really stellar job. So you got to give him a thumbs up there because Ryan Carpenter did what he was supposed to do. And as a waiver claim, kind of interesting to see what he has become now. Because with Ryan Carpenter, the last time that we have seen him was back in San Jose. So I guess that's the definition of full circle. He started out in San Jose, gets picked up by Vegas, he goes to Chicago, and now the last time that we've seen Ryan Carpenter, he is back in San Jose. So kind of interesting to see what happens there. And when it comes to Malcolm Subban, I just want to pivot very quickly. The last time that we've seen Malcolm Subban, by the way, he was actually in Columbus. So the Columbus Blue Jackets, that's the last time we have seen Malcolm Subban. So out of those 2 waiver claims so far, we talked about Ryan Carpenter and Malcolm Subban, but that was in the 2017-2018 season. Now, in the 2018-2019 season, the Vegas Golden Knights had only 1 waiver claim during that time, and that was Valentin Zykov. And this is interesting because not only was he claimed on waivers by Vegas, but he actually was claimed not once but twice during that season. He started out with the Carolina Hurricanes to begin the year. Then he was claimed by the Edmonton Oilers, and a few weeks later, and then on December 29th, 2018, the Edmonton Oilers would put Valentin Zykov on waivers, and the Vegas Golden Knights would claim him to be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, when it comes to Valentin, this is someone who really didn't have that big of an impact on the surface. So when it comes to someone like him, he did not play a huge percentage of game. Only 25 games he played in the Vegas Golden Knights organization. In fact, he actually spent more time in the AHL with the Vegas Golden Knights organization. He played 29 games there. But when it came to him, unfortunately, he would leave the NHL entirely after ending his tenure with the Golden Knights. So after just 25 games in the NHL, 29 games in the AHL, playing parts of 2 seasons in Vegas, Valentin Zykov, he would go and join a Swedish club. And this is brought to you, by the way, when it comes to hockeyreference.com. So he would go to Sweden. He would play there for a little bit. And then he would finally go back to his native country. He would play in Russia. And he actually would be with St. Petersburg in the KHL. So when it comes to Valentin Zykov, he is now back in Russia, back in the KHL, and he is playing for St. Petersburg. And this is kind of a little bit of a pivot here on Vegas Hockey Hub, but I just want to quickly mention this. That current roster for St. Petersburg, that is actually an interesting roster if you understand the Vegas Golden Knights, because there has actually been a few players that have been in St. Petersburg that are part of the Golden Knights organization. And there is a goaltender they just recently drafted, and Pavel Moisevich, who came from the SKA St. Petersburg. So overall, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, going to be interesting to see if there's any more connection there between those two. After all, let's not forget that Vadim Shiparov and Nikita Gusev, they were also part of SKA St. Petersburg before landing on the Vegas Golden Knights. So that is the first 3 waiver claims. I put Valentin in kind of just in the middle tier, just neutral. You know, wasn't bad, wasn't good, but just kind of neutral. Now, 2 years later, all right, they did not have a single waiver claim in 2019-2020, and they did not have a single waiver claim in 2020-2021. But In the beginning of the 2021-2022 season, the Vegas Golden Knights would have 2 waiver claims in a span of a month. Now, the first one was the most successful waiver claim your Vegas Golden Knights have had in franchise history, and the other barely made an impact at all. As the first one, and the one that made a huge difference for you, Michael Amadio. Michael Amadio, October 29th, 2021, Toronto Maple Leafs would put him up on waivers. Your Vegas Golden Knights would claim him. And what a tenure Michael Amadio would have. Not only did he play, if you include playoff games, over 200 games with your Vegas Golden Knights, but more importantly, he would be on a Stanley Cup roster and would help the Vegas Golden Knights win their first ever championship in franchise history. There's also someone in Michael Amadio who scored a game-winning goal against the Winnipeg Jets in the playoff in round 1 during the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. So to say that Michael Amadio has been the most impactful waiver claim your Vegas Golden Knights have would be a massive understatement. This is someone in Michael Amadio who didn't just spend 3 seasons in Vegas, but he was someone who started out on the bottom 6, made his way into the middle 6, and made it as high as the second line in some games with your Vegas Golden Knights. So for Michael Amadio, I can sit here and appreciate what he did for the Vegas Golden Knights. And when it came to Michael Amadio, his overall stats with the Golden Knights, and once again, I always give my sources. Hockey Reference is where we get this from. But for Michael Amadio, his 3 seasons being of the Golden Knights organization, his statistics would look like this. In the 2021-2022 season, he played in 56 games, had 11 goals and 18 points in his first season with the Golden Knights. This is during the season that they did not go to the playoffs, however, so there is no playoff data there. Then year 2, he actually would have his best performing season as a Vegas Golden Knight, as Michael Amadio would play in 67 of 82 games. He would have over a dozen goals with 16 and would accumulate 27 points on the bottom 6. And then during the playoffs for Michael Amadio, in 16 games that he would be in the playoffs, he scored 5 goals, including that series clinching one against the Winnipeg Jets, and then 10 points during 16 games. So very valuable was Michael Amadio. This is someone who during that playoff run, you had to have him because of how successful the Golden Knights were, but because of how valuable Michael Amadio was on the middle 6. And then his third and final year being in Vegas, he would play in 73 of 82 games. He would have 14 goals, a little bit down from the year before, but would accumulate the same amount of points with 27. And then for Michael Amadio, he would play in only 4 of the 7 playoff games that year, but he would score a goal and have 2 points during that time period. Now, for Michael Amadio, this offseason, he did sign with the Ottawa Senators, so he went back to a team that he was with prior. And as someone who's part of the Golden Knights and someone who's been watching them for the longest time, I'm going to say when it comes to Michael Amadio, good luck in Ottawa. We wish you the best, and we hope you well. So for Michael Amadio, this is definitely a plus when it comes to the waiver claim category. He is by far the best waiver claim the Vegas Golden Knights had. So to go from an absolute plus in Michael Amadio to kind of a down, a month after the Michael Amadio waiver claim, they would go to the Montreal Canadiens and they would claim Adam Brooks. And Adam Brooks is an interesting tale because not many people really know much about Adam Brooks, but he did score 2 goals in just 7 games with the Vegas Golden Knights organization. And by the way, those 2 goals in 7 games were the only points he ever scored. So I want you to think about this. You play in just 7 games. You score 2 goals, but that's the only 2 points you scored. There was no assists, just goals for Adam Brooks. And then after that 7-game tenure, he would go down to Henderson in the AHL. He'd play in a few games there, and then the Vegas Golden Knights would put him on waivers, and he would be claimed again by Toronto in February. So for a guy like Adam Brooks, kind of interesting how he would be claimed not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times in a single season. I mean, Adam Brooks went from Toronto to Montreal to Vegas to Toronto to Winnipeg. That's a lot of air miles. That's definitely a lot of, traveling and kind of getting your miles up there. The fact that he was unclaimed and on waivers 5 different times. But yeah, I kind of put this as a down because he really didn't play that much with the Vegas Golden Knights. Kind of similar to Valentin Zykov out there a few years prior. I mean, you only played 12 games total as a member of the Golden Knights organization, and then you got claimed just quickly near after. So for Adam Brooks, not that much of an impact, kind of someone that just came and went with the Golden Knights organization. And after the 2022-2023 season, where during the Stanley Cup championship run, your Vegas Golden Knights, where they won the Stanley Cup, there was no waivers that they claimed. They claimed nobody on waivers during the 2 years during the run they had in Stanley Cup. But in October of 2023, before the season started, before they kicked off, they would add someone on waivers, and that would be Gregory Diancinco. And Gregory Diancinco, former first-round pick by Florida, and was someone in the Stanley Cup Finals playing for Florida against Vegas just a few months prior. And he would be claimed by Vegas. He would be sent down to the AHL almost immediately, but he did play a few games for the Golden Knights. So he actually would have a cup of coffee due to injuries during the 2023-2024 season. And for a guy like Gregory Diancinco, bottom 6 guy, only played in 6 games last year, but there is one positive for him, and I'm going to put him in the neutral category for this one, and that is his tenure in the AHL. As Gregory Diancinco would be in the AHL with your Henderson Silver Knights, and he would actually perform relatively well for Henderson, as he would have a 20-goal season. He would rack up over 50 points and rack up over 50 penalty minutes during his first season out there in Henderson. And due to that performance, due to the 20-goal, 50-point season, he would actually be named as an AHL All-Star with the Vegas Golden Knights. So for Diancinco, he hasn't done much in the NHL, but being named an All-Star and scoring over 50 points in the AHL, I put him in the neutral tier because he has not done bad with the Golden Knights and will actually be in Season 2 being down in the AHL to begin the year. So we'll have to see what he does in 24-25. But yeah, Diancinco, I like what we saw from him in the AHL, just not much action in the NHL. And then a few months later, in the beginning of January of this year, the Vegas Golden Knights would reach out to the LA Kings and they would get a waiver claim, as Tobias Bjornfot would be claimed. This was a former high draft pick with the Los Angeles Kings. Very skilled defenseman, someone who was kind of thinking about maybe being a very skilled member of the Golden Knights. And he played 2 games for Vegas. After being claimed, he would play 2 games. That was when Lucas Cormier was called up as well. This is when the Vegas Golden Knights were dealing with a handful of injuries. That's when Martinez was out, Theodore was out. That's when you had the whole White Cloud situation. But with Tobias Bjornfot, he would play in those 2 games, and then he would get injured and then get sent down to the AHL. He would play in a few games in Henderson, and then 2 months later, around the trade deadline, Tobias Bjornfot would be claimed by Florida, and his tenure in Vegas would come to an end. So, similar to Adam Brooks, I have to kind of put this in the down category because you had such a brief tenure in Vegas that you really don't know what you could have expected from Tobias Bjornfot, because you really didn't have much traction. There was really not a lot of stuff that we saw from you because of how short and how brief your tenure was. As a matter of fact, this is how brief his tenure was. The fact that Tobias Bjornfot, he played in just 7 games for the Golden Knights organization, and he had 0 goals, 0 assists, and 0 points. So, yeah, not that big of a stat line for Tobias Bjornfot. And with him getting claimed by Florida, he was quickly out the door. Now, The 8th and final waiver claim for your Vegas Golden Knights. And this happened just recently. As the Vegas Golden Knights, they would not only get one waiver claim, but why not let's get two? As the Vegas Golden Knights would reach out to the Calgary Flames and they would claim Cole Schwinn on waivers. And then just a little bit later, they would go to the Edmonton Oilers and they would claim Rachiele on waivers. And this is an interesting situation for one of them because he has been a carousel of, being on waivers, getting claimed, being put on waivers. But let's talk about Lavoie in just a little bit. Now, for Cole Schwinn, he's got some potential here. Like watching him in training camp, watching him in preseason, getting to see some of his highlights with the Calgary Wranglers in the AHL, and then seeing him practice with the Golden Knights. Do not be surprised if him being a rookie this season, he plays a decent amount of games for your Golden Knights. This is someone, Cole Schwinn, I think could actually have a lot of value to bring to the bottom six for Vegas. And if you give him enough time and you give him enough space, regardless of what line you put him on, could be line 4, could be line 3. But I actually think that Cole provides a lot of upside to the Vegas Golden Knights. So this waiver claim here from Calgary could provide much use to the Golden Knights organization. And similar to Ryan Carpenter and Michael Amadio earlier in this video, who knows? Maybe by the end of it, he will actually have a valuable tenure and play over 100 games for Vegas. Now, for Rachiele Lavoie, this has been a guy who's been put on waivers by Edmonton, claimed by Vegas. Claimed by Vegas, put on waivers, claimed by Edmonton. Edmonton puts him on waivers, he gets claimed by Vegas. At this point, I'm not going to sit here and say anything about Rachiele Lavoie until he has officially planted his feet in Vegas. Because this is someone who knows, maybe a month from now, he'll be put on waivers again. Who knows? Maybe he's going to be an Adam Brooks or a Tobias Bjornfoot situation. He plays a few games in Henderson, maybe plays a game or two in Vegas, and then he gets put back on waivers, and Edmonton picks him up again. Or Montreal picks him up, or Toronto picks him up, or Florida picks him up. So for Rachiele Lavoie, I don't have that much to say about him because I'm not 100% confident that he is going to be in Vegas long term. Hopefully he is, because as a skilled player, former second-round pick by the Edmonton Oilers all those years ago, you've seen his stats in Bakersfield in the AHL. He seems like a very talented player. But ask yourself this question. How is it that if you're a very skilled player, are you doing this waiver carousel like you are? What is the situation with Rachiele Lavoie? And the thing about him is, why are you being put on waivers, and what's the reason for the whole back and forth with him? So overall, looking at the two most recent waiver claims for your Vegas Golden Knights, Cole Schwinn, a lot of upside. I am looking forward to seeing what he does in an entire 82-game season. Rachiele Lavoie, I wish him the best, but this whole waiver carousel, it's similar to Yuri Patera in Boston and Vancouver, where he was put on waivers in Vancouver, picked up by Boston. Boston put him on waivers, picked up by Vancouver. I mean, it's like that Simpsons meme, where like the guy walks into the pub, puts his hat down, turns around, picks up his hat, puts it back on, and leaves the pub. I mean, that's really what this whole waiver carousel is, like a roller coaster. That's what this has been. So overall, this has been the 8 waiver claims your Vegas Golden Knights have had in franchise history. I will repeat it one more time for the people who have not seen it. So the first waiver claim in history, October 3rd, 2017, goaltender Malcolm Subban from the Boston Bruins, actually played a few seasons in Vegas. This was a good move there. And then December 13th, 2017, San Jose Sharks put Ryan Carpenter on waivers, would be claimed by Vegas. And he had a really good tenure as a Golden Knight in terms of how waiver claims go. And then in December of 2018, Valentin Zykov, only 25 games in Vegas. Now he is back home in Russia. October 29, 2021, the best waiver claim in Golden Knights history, Michael Amadio, played over 200 games in terms of regular season and playoff, and won a Stanley Cup in Vegas. Adam Brooks was claimed in November of 2021. He only had a cup of coffee in Vegas. He'd be claimed by Montreal and then would go back and be in Toronto and Winnipeg after that. Gregory Diancinco, he is in the AHL right now, was an all-star last year, 20 goal scorer. We'll see how he does in 24-25. Tobias Bjornfoot, who only played 2 games in the Golden Knights system and was claimed by Florida very soon afterwards. And then the most recent waiver claim, Cole Schwinn and Raphael Lavoie. So this was your waiver history on PR Connections Radio. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. This is Vegas Hockey Hub. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, go Knights, go.